Hello everyone, welcome back to the ONLE Networking Show, news, education and member spotlights from ONLE Networking. I'm James West.
And I'm Kelly West, and we are the founders of ONLE Networking, the online business network for people who like people.
It's the summer edition today. You can tell that denoted by the fact we've got succulents and I've got a summer short
And I'm
sleeve
wearing a very summery dress.
It's just like a ball gown. Doesn't look that summery. So, what have we got coming up on the show? What kind of networker are you? We're going to kind of hold up a mirror to some networking behaviours, type of networking. We're also going to go around the network talking about technology. And we've got an interview. Not sure how this is going to go. Two people, it's always interesting, but they are lovely. Nick and Tracey Shrimpton. Shrimpton, Sixth Sense Marketing. So you're going to be having a chat with those guys as well. To start, we want to thank our sponsor, the Mayflower Theatre in Southampton. So live entertainment venue, quite a famous place. They attract 500,000 people a year to their events. But they also, you might not know this, but contribute £70 million, well, this was last year, to the local economy. So, you know, huge contribution. And they're also deeply entrenched with the business community. So you can do some really cool corporate events. They've got specific spaces that you can hire. And there's also business memberships as well. So do check them out. There's some details going to appear on the screen, links in the description. Thank you, Mayflower Theatre. So for our topic this month, we're going to talk about what kind of networker are you?
We are.
That'll be fun.
That will be fun.
What do we identify? What kind of networker do we see? Well, the starting point with this was, this is a bit harsh, but I think it's unfortunately a truism, the expect something for nothing networker. Mm-hmm. We've got this saying, haven't we? No one owes you anything just because you've gone to a networking event. I think that's really, there is an expectation, isn't there, that I've paid my money or I've given time to attend a networking event. Surely I'm owed a result. These people should, if I advertise that I'm selling something, they should buy. Doesn't work that way, does it?
Well, if you're very lucky, you might get a sale, but it doesn't generally work that way. No, it doesn't. Nothing wrong with being that person. Just got to say that. There's not. There's networks out there that will.
It's a choice.
Exactly, it's a choice, and there will be networks out there that will be full of people like that. And maybe if you're in a room with those people, I don't know, that energy might work. It doesn't typically work within ONLE very much, I would suggest.
And to be fair, we should shout BNI because we sometimes talk about BNI slightly negatively, not because we're against it, but just because we think there's a different way to do it. That's what BNI are good at. Yeah. They teach you, look, if you want something from this network, you have to contribute, and they actually enforce it by their rules, don't they?
They do.
But I think the problem is now with networking like ours, like other networks that don't have such harsh rules, you go too far the other way and people think, what, as we started off? Well, I'm going to get something without helping others. I think that's going to become increasingly difficult.
Yeah, it's a bit like having a cold call, isn't it? None of us like that. It blows my mind that actually still exists, in all honesty. I'm not somebody who picks up the phone to calls like that, but it's the same principle, isn't it? You're thrusting that voice, that opinion on somebody that isn't necessarily kind of open to it or wanting it at that moment in time. So I think it's just being mindful of your actions and where you are making those actions happen and who you're talking to. It's not successful networking, I would suggest. It is more about building the relationship, obviously, but equally along those lines, lots of people that want help but not quite open to give help.
Yeah.
So again, if you think about that, you know, if you're constantly asking people to like your stuff, or here's a link, can you just do a quick survey for me, or I've got a new website, could you just have a quick look at it? Just think about how often do you do that for other people. It's that gaining credit that we talk about, isn't it? There's nothing wrong with asking, and network is a great space for all of those things, but don't be the person that's always asking. Be the person that asks and gives as well. It's a balance.
Well, it's the fastest way to get people to like your, what's it on Instagram? Follow you on Instagram is to go and follow them first. They'll probably follow you back, so why bother asking? It's actually a quicker, more efficient thing to do is follow them, isn't it? Yeah. And this is another point. If you want help, and there's nothing wrong with asking for help, by the way, at networking, make it easy for people to do so.
Oh, absolutely.
Because you get this all the time. We have to say to people, right, you want me to sign up to that thing, maybe you've got a webinar, maybe you want me to sign up for something. put the link in the chat.
Well, this is
I shouldn't have to chase you to help you, should I?
Definitely, and this is a really good point. This is a massive missed opportunity. Again, only this week I've been in a meeting and somebody had an offer. They said, I'll share the link in the ONLE Facebook group. Fine, I mean, that's a great thing. You can go off and you can do that, but people are here now, nodding, wanting that link. So don't talk about it if you don't have the ability for me to then follow up on that. So I think the key there is share those things, but have the links ready. You know, we've talked about this before, and I know we bang the same drum a lot, but until it gets heard, don't say, oh, come on to YouTube and find me. You can find me under XYZ. Now, I'm not going to do that. It's too much effort. I might do it if I've got time, but I'm more likely to do it if you've dropped the link in the chat box for me. So be prepared is the thing.
And if you're going to ask for an action like that, do one thing. We've learned this. If we put a link in the chat, if we try and do two things, you get nothing.
Yeah.
But if you do one and you're clear, you'll generally, you're more likely to get a result. Let's just check off some of the other, what kind of networkers are you? I'm here to speak, not to listen. We've covered this. I feel like we talk about this every show, but you know, it is so important online that you show that you're here to listen, not just to broadcast at people. The business card distributor, like that's an adaptation of what we saw in-person networking. I'm just going to walk around the room, give you my card, walk off. That kind of behaviour. But again, you know, check your own behaviour. You're effectively doing that online. That's not relationship building, is it?
No, it's a tick box exercise. But on the flip side of that, are you the business card collector? Are you just there to gain those connections and not really build any depth with them? So it works both ways.
Well, and then the final one was the ticking a box net. Well, I've been networking. It doesn't work. It's not just about turning up, is it? It's about what you do with those connections. It's about building relationships. So what should you do? What kind of do you want to be known as a relationship builder?
Yep.
Do you want to be a social networker? This is an undervalued move, I think. Just be really social and interested in people.
I think this is going to change in the future. I think this is going to be there's a massive move towards that more socialised networking, because you can network wherever you are. You don't necessarily have to be in a pure networking environment in order to make those connections. I think I'll name him, and I hope he doesn't mind, but Richard Hyron is fantastic in that space. Just wanting to get to know people, find out a bit more about them, be more social with them. The connections he makes are phenomenal. I hear so many good things about him, but because he wants to get to know that person socially. Also, you know, we run a couple of events, a book club, don't we? Book and film club. It's great because you really get to know that person.
Yeah. You're
really forging that relationship. Only connect with Vanda. Again, there's people that go there regularly, know each other in a different space. So it's about recognising that networking's changed, and how can you enforce and enhance those relationships and grow them to the next level.
Here's another play. This is something that I don't think gets talked about enough, being a champion of the people you meet. So let's just say, for example, say your business is offering something quite transactional or not particularly exciting. So like solicitors, accountants, there's only so many ways that you can say, I help you get your books in order, I help you save tax, all this stuff, right? Yeah, I'm sure there are ways to do it, but here's a different strategy. Just go to networking and say, I'm here because I really want to support everyone's business that I meet. And I take the time to build depth, dig a little bit deeper into what they're doing, like, share, all that stuff, and just basically big them up and become their fan. You could suggest that that's a little bit sycophantic, but, you know, people do respond to that. And then you become, not because of what you've marketed, but because of the person that you are, people are more likely to come to you when they need that particular solution.
But that, just something you said there's just triggered, that kind of is why within ONLE the regional groups work so well, because you build that community. I've been on a call this morning and that works really well in that community group. They very much are ambassadors for each other. They'll share each other's posts, they'll comment. It might not be directly passing business to each other in that moment, but they are using that opportunity. We provide that platform to go, well, listen, we're in a little community group here in this region, I won't name it, and we're going to support each other as much as we can. That speaks volumes. People will respect you so much for just doing that.
Yeah, but then the sort of by virtue of the way that we're networking now online, you can do that across all groups, can't you? So, you know, taking that notion of being the champion of others, go into other groups and be that person. Because again, we've said this in previous shows, but if not many people are doing it, you can use it to stand out head and shoulders. And we've created quite an odd network in a way, haven't we? In that if you're good and you're liked, and you don't have to be the most sparkling personality to be the champion of others, you're going to clean up.
We do. We see it time and time again.
So just a few things to sum up. You know, it's the short-term versus long-term network. Are you there to build relationships? The hunter-farmer. I always think about Jim Culverwell wrote a blog on this idea of, are you, you know, hunting there just to look for opportunities, or are you farming, you know, nurturing relationships long-term? So just think about what kind of networker you want to be and how you want to be remembered.
We talk about this a lot. People don't remember what you say, they remember how you make them feel. So what are your actions? How are you interacting with people? How are you following up with them? How are you treating them? How are you respecting them? Are you being timely with responses? It's how you make them feel is what will make you remembered.
Definitely. Good point to end on. So Kelly, it's time to go round the network. We're going to be talking about technology. We've been asking members what's their favourite bit of technology. Great language from me there. Couldn't think of a better word. We've got some good answers. Steph and Debbie from Stebbington, the idea was that technology within business, there's a weird dynamic in that most small business owners spend ages on computers. Social media, but do we actually really spend time looking at technology and what it can do for us and exploiting it to its full potential? So we're talking, this is what they do, but we're talking about things like automation of process that you keep repeating, improved accuracy, customer experience, speed of, you know, it saves you a lot of time, to automation, integrating, because they work with off-the-shelf bits of technology. We're not talking about hard, you know, going to a developer. This is stuff that's readily available, but their contention is we probably only use 10% of the potential of that technology. And my old bugbear of social media, you know, we'll give loads of time to social media, writing posts, trying to get traction on there without really ever getting a definitive, repeatable outcome. You know, it's never 100% precision when you do any kind of social media marketing. But if you build a process, you know, the example that Steph gave is that we saved a client 4 hours every time they onboarded a new client. Half a day, you know, for a small business owner is not insignificant, as well as the accuracy. That never goes away. You're going to keep making that saving every time you onboard someone. So put in the time to...
Applicable to all of us as well.
That's right. Yeah, we've all got these repeatable processes. So that was the kind of framing starting point. But we went around the network and asked people best bit of business technology. We got some great answers. Do you want to have a look at a few of those? If you can interpret my notes.
If I can read your notes.
Make it up.
So Isis from New York, she says Google Calendar. Good old
she said I couldn't live without it, you know, the way that everything integrates together and it manages my appointments and stuff.
It doesn't always have to be fancy, I think, is the point.
Yeah.
The ones we rely on.
Oh, you want me to carry on?
Well, you know, we thought we've taken in turn.
This was into the sort of CRM. There's some really good tools around for CRM and sort of process management, task management. Brian Hilliard talked about Pipeline. I have heard of that one. Sarah Bryson talked about Notion. She called it her business brain. So she uses it to organise her schedule as a CRM system. It's her business brain because you can't remember everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't.
No, you can try, but you're not going to. Larry, love this. Larry Layton, YouTube. If I need to fix anything, there's a video for it. I never use YouTube ever, and it's, yeah, Larry, you're right. I think you can use Google a lot, but I don't ever think to use YouTube. Not down with the kids, I think is what it is.
Well, particularly for troubleshooting technology, actually. If you want to get, you know, a tutorial on how to do something, make something work, YouTube all day long. Great tip, Larry.
Yeah. Tracey Shrimpton talks about Airtable. Looked at that one before. I'm one of those people who's probably spent 10 minutes on everything looking at demos, and that's kind of the point of this. Don't do that. Get some advice from people. So Airtable, which is a collaboration and project management system. Sounds good.
Jim Culverwell, calendar. I don't know why I laughed. I'm laughing because of the typo. I will mention it. Jim Culverwell, Calendly. Again, we sometimes overlook the things that we probably take Calendly for granted. He said, it's the best money I've spent. And he said, it saves me so much time, but this is spell checked it to save smooch time.
Jim will like that, I think.
He will quite like that, yeah.
Patrick Melville, good old Zoom. I think Zoom should be our best friend as well, shouldn't it? Without it, we wouldn't be able to do what we do. Again, another one, basic, but one that we need to remember.
Jeff Day talked about Trello for managing his teams and his task manager. We've started using Trello, really good task manager. Just sort of logical, isn't it?
It is, and we do need to give Callum a bit of kudos for that because he's been on at us to use it for a long, long time. So thank you, Callum.
Sometimes you should listen to Callum. I should listen to Callum. Sorry, Callum.
Steph Lucas, welcome back to the network this month. So welcome back, Steph. She's actually a ClickUp representative. She's the only one in the UK, and that's a project management tool as well.
You do Janet's one because I want to do the last one.
Oh, do you? Cherry picking now. So
Yeah.
Janet Hudson, also another New York member, she talked about send out cards. We actually used to use this, and maybe it's something we'll go back to, referred to us from Brian out in New York. But it's that tech to tactile thing. So it's you can use it as a CRM, but the idea of it is that you plug it with all of your customers' data, personal information, birthdays, anniversaries, etc. And then you send out physical cards on those dates. You can add little gifts to it if you want to. So it's kind of taking that systemised clerical sort of approach of having that in a system to that manual, I'm going to send you something nice in the post and make you feel special.
Tech to tactile, that just tripped off your tongue.
Well, you wrote it on the notes.
But you said it like...
It's good.
It was very alliterative as well.
Thank you.
Well done. I wanted to save this one because good old Ainsley, the print lady, she was joking a bit because she said, I do use technology. Of course I do. But she did say, a lot of what you're talking about is all hobbity magic and I prefer ink and paper all the way. Hobbity magic. What a great thing to say. Thank you, Ainsley.
So welcome everybody. This part of the ONLE show is where I get to speak to the wonderful ONLE Talks experts. And today we have two of them. We've only done this twice now, I think, where we've had three people in the room. So it's always good fun. Lovely to have you, Tracey and Nick Shrimpton. Good to have you. Oh, yeah. So we can tell by the surname that you're husband and wife, and we're going to talk about that a little bit more in a minute. But first of all, I'm going to share your bios. So husband and wife team, Nick and Tracey Shrimpton offer a done-for-you marketing service, with Nick bringing his background in copywriting and Tracey her experience in business improvement for 6 Sense marketing clients. Dream team then, this sounds like.
Of course.
You nodded, Nick. Well done, well done. So, of course, James and I, husband and wife team. It would be remiss of me not to touch base with this first of all. We'll see where this conversation goes. So talk to me, tell me, what's it like being a husband and wife team?
Well, the first thing to say is before you hit the record button, Tracey said to me off air, I had to answer this one first. It's not going to be for everybody, is it? I mean, that's quite clear. And in fact, when we said we were going to start the business, I think there were two camps. One that said, I don't know why you guys didn't start working together many years ago. And the other half that said, we'll give it a year and then you'll come to your senses. I think the only bit of advice I'd sort of offer up early on is understand the different roles that you have to play, understand the different hats that you're wearing. I think part of the reason why it works in our business is that we share everything, but we don't actually share any clients. And that actually gives us the little bit of gappage or distance, so that we're working on our own projects. We bounce off each other where we need to, but that gives us enough separation when actually everything else is the same. So, Tracey, what do you think about that?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think, Nick and I, we met at university. We have known each other for years. We know we can work together. We've both had kind of marketing careers, so we both have marketing expertise, but we actually work with very different types of clients. Okay. So there is an element, yes, we do run a business together, but actually, we are, as Nick said, we're not working on the same clients doing different elements of the work. We are working on our own sort of client base.
I mean, the other thing is, so I'm just going to chip in here before you move on. Sorry. We're actually very different, aren't we, as well? You have a logical approach. You're sort of quite comfortable with sort of a data approach and logic, whereas I'm far more listen to my heart and my gut and lead with that. And like everything, that can be a blessing and a curse. But again, I think it makes us different and brings two different perspectives on a single issue, which can actually be quite beneficial, I think.
And it probably helps as well if you do work with clients individually, you can work out who's going to suit that character, that personality type better.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Actually, thinking about it, you've probably got the dream setup there, because if you don't cross over with clients, that can sometimes be where the butting heads comes, doesn't it? Having the differing opinion that deals with one thing in particular. I know James and I are in that space sometimes. What about business development? Do you share the same goals and the outlook for the business?
Yes, I think, yeah, it's interesting. It's sort of, sort of doing the ONLE talks and just talking about, a decision that we made relatively early on, actually not to scale the business, and the business is about us and our personal service. And yeah, absolutely, sharing the same goals. And, it's great when you want to take a day off or do something or go out, you can do that really easily. It's not a case of, somebody's got to get permission from an employer to have a day off or anything like that. So those sorts of decisions are really easy.
Yeah, it is tough. I know that, speaking from experience. When you live together, work together, you guys have been together for a long time as well. James and I, we've only been together for, I should know this, shouldn't I? 9 years. Hopefully I've got that right. We'll cut it out if I haven't. So it's still quite sweet at the moment. We're a relatively new couple, so I think we've got lots of years hopefully to look forward to and experience all of that. But I think it does bring a different dynamic to you as a couple, and we aren't people. We can vividly remember having a conversation with another couple in business that are part of ONLE actually, and they say at 6:30 every day they switch off the work conversation. Now we can't do that. And we don't put in rules and enforce things like that, because you want to be able to talk about it when you want to be able to talk about it and not kind of worry too much. So does that happen with you guys, or do you have hard cut off points?
No, we don't. And I don't think that what's right for one isn't right for the other, of course. We don't do that. And I think part of the reason why we don't feel that we needed that is that when we started the business, we had an exceptionally clear and focused reason for doing what we were doing. So we had a shared goal and a shared dream. And I think people who are watching this who know us know what that is. We wanted to have a situation where we could own a property overseas and work from an overseas location and from our UK home as well. COVID accelerated the acceptance of distance working and made that dream not only possible, but possible more quickly. So I think from day one, where you have a very, very solid reason for doing something, then so long as you buy into that as an end goal, then that kind of steers everything else that you do. So you don't need to sort of say, well, we're going to stop talking about the business at 5:30 on a Friday and not talk again about it until Monday. Because actually by talking about it, if you're doing it in a constructive way, you're always moving forwards to a goal that you both 50-50 share and believe in, that's worth achieving. So if I had any advice for a husband and wife considering starting, or sort of two close friends or partners even, is why are you doing it, and what does the end goal look like? So almost sort of start at the end and work back from there.
So yeah, and I think if you talk to any business coach, a business coach will say, well, what's your why? Why are you doing this? And it's not about the goals in the business. It's about what that business, in terms of the freedom of time or the money that you generate, that enables you to do. That's why you're doing it.
It's the complete circle, isn't it? It's the driver, it's the reason why, it's the pushing that dream forward.
Yes. And I think it's also in business, you get ideas at silly times on a Saturday afternoon, and there's an element, being husband or wife, can I just sense check this? What do you think about that? Or should we talk about it? So there will be points at which you say, actually, let's just park that until whenever. Yeah. But being able to kind of raise something when you kind of think of it is really helpful. I find it really helpful.
Yeah, and I think the other thing as well is you have to have a realization that at a grander level, your workloads are never going to be identical. So one's going to be busier when someone isn't, and vice versa. And what that means is, in terms of the household working well, our children are left home now, but when they were at home, one or other has got to do something that's not work related to make the household work, whether it's picking the kids up from school, doing the shopping, hoovering the house or whatever it is. You can't stand on ceremony and say, well, look, I've got a quiet day today, but I don't do that. You've got to absolutely muck in, and you can't afford to have demarcation lines, that's when sort of conflict arises in my view.
I'm smirking because these are conversations we have all the time. I think, and it's a really valid point. I'm probably talking about, I've got all these questions which I won't get to, but this is fascinating. So I think two things there. It reminded me of a conversation just yesterday. Sat on the sofa and I said something about business, and James just went, I just don't really don't want to talk about this right now. Just leave that one for tomorrow. I was like, yeah, absolutely, it's a big can of worms. But the other thing, you talked about having your roles, so clearly defined roles. And Nick, you're right, whether you're friends, partners, husband and wife, whatever it is you are, if there's a close relationship within the business, having those defined roles and role documents, I think more importantly, to say, well, this is what I do and this is what I do, and there may be an overlap somewhere, I think is hugely important. We get to crack that properly, but maybe you've inspired me to get that bit done. I think that's
well, I'm the IT director, and I still haven't worked out how I picked that one up. Maybe you'd like, maybe now's the time to tell me.
Somebody else
that was the poison chalice, wasn't it? It's like, Nick, my computer's not working.
Yeah.
You're the IT
director.
One of the few.
Brilliant. So you kind of alluded to this, but what was the spark that ignited the business? You were at uni together, you were doing marketing. I guess you had backgrounds in marketing, you didn't go straight into self-employment. So just tell me a little bit about that.
I mean, for me, there's that sort of element, you in the corporate world, you suddenly find, working in marketing, so that's what you started out doing, and then suddenly you become more senior in a corporate role, and you're leading a team, and you're influencing people at board level, and you're writing papers, and you suddenly go, well, I started because this is the things I really enjoyed doing. So it's it's also that, as Nick said, in terms of our goals, the flexibility. Well, if you want to take holiday, you've got to go and ask somebody.
Not anymore.
I didn't like what I was doing, so in some ways easy. I had a head start. Tracy was a lot more content in her corporate career than I was, so I was the one who sort of engineered the suggestion of making this change on the back of just being unhappy for too long and needing for that to end. And so in some ways I'm happy to put on record my gratitude to her for actually sort of buying into what was my idea, but an idea based on the fact that I couldn't sustain what I was doing. So
no, that's brilliant.
Turns out to have been quite a good decision, I think, or we think, but yeah.
How long has Sixth Sense been running now?
2014 we started, so
wow, a long time. So this leads me nicely into the question. We've sort of touched base on this, and this is interesting. We're thinking about life, business and personal balance. You mentioned being able to be in Spain. People that know you well know that that's really important to you. How is that working? Is it a good fit at the moment? You talked about COVID obviously accelerating that. Exciting. Tell me more.
Yeah, I think so. For me, it's there's an element of, because Spain is an hour ahead as well.
Yes.
Is actually you can get an awful lot done in those first few hours, while actually it's relatively quiet. And I think there's also that distance, and the fact that there are other things that you might want to be doing in that day or that evening, really helps me to focus on actually what do I need to achieve today, and then getting on and doing that. Whereas for some reason here in the UK, I can sort of I can pad and fill time and then realise that I haven't actually done the important things that day.
I think a lot of it is clearly it's important to us, okay, but actually it should be of zero importance to our clients. They shouldn't actually know or care where we are, where I am. A number of people sarcastically say, "Oh, you're in Spain again." You go, absolutely, I am. But actually, other than that, when we're pitching for business, it's very, very rare that we would raise it, because actually, in terms of a working relationship, getting the job done, it has zero impact from a client point of view.
Wow.
It should do.
Yeah.
Occasionally, if there's need for in-person, you
Yes.
explain that you're not living somewhere else, you're spending time away. Can it be done by virtual meeting? Yes, no. 9 times out of 10, yes. If no, then, well, let's put a date in the diary for when we get back, or you flag it up before you go. But really, it is a non-issue in my experience to date in terms of getting the job done, building relationships. You know that we've run only meetings where we do ours, and I've been there, and no one knows. It doesn't matter, and that's how it should be.
And I think you should be proud that you've built a business that enables you to do that. I don't think you should ever feel that you can't talk about it. I think that's a huge achievement for both of you. And actually, I'd argue that it has an even more positive experience for your customers, your clients, because you're in a good place. You're living your dream. You're doing what you want to do. So you're able to give them that and some, aren't you? Because you're doing what you want to do in that right environment.
Oh, one of the things I'd like to hear about are more stories from people who have achieved what they wanted. I think there's an awful lot of people who sort of, to my way of thinking, are they're still climbing their personal mountains, and people just seem to be climbing indefinitely. And you're thinking, let's hear more stories about people who say, I'm getting close to where I wanted to be, and isn't that great? And I'm sure that they're out there, because we're doing this for a reason. It's not just there aren't many people for whom just the job is the sole motivation. There's an end goal, and it would be lovely to hear from others about how they're getting towards that, or those that have done it, and what then happens, what happens afterwards. So
what's the bigger picture?
And I think as a business owner, there's always this sort of what next, and it's something that Nick and I have discussed, and others have sort of observed, is that how do you celebrate success in business? And I think it's really easy to just overlook it and say, well, yeah, okay, I've got this amazing client, I'm doing this wonderful piece of work, I've produced this, but you're always just thinking, what's next? And actually, for your own sort of well-being, actually, when you take time to reflect on what you've done or what you've achieved, the difference in your mindset's quite something.
I can always tell when I'm speaking to people that have kind of got business where they want it to be, they're achieving their goals and they're enjoying life. There's this air of calmness. It's it might not be under the surface sometimes, of course, we'll have our moments, but it's really lovely to talk to people like you in your situation, because you've kind of cracked it in a way. You're pretty much where you want to be, and you're striving to get to that place, which does lead me nicely into the next question. What's your proudest business moment so far? So what have you been most proud of?
For me, there was it's a discussion that we've had, actually, us making that decision to say, actually, what is this business about? That point at which, are we going to scale it? Are we going to grow it and build a business? Which then would have just led back to that same, actually, you're then not doing the work again. You are running a team and running a business rather than doing the work. So I think for me, it's making that decision. And particularly, I read loads of books, I read business books, and everything you read heads in that direction. Actually, unless you're growing a business, and scaling a business, you're not really running a business. And that may be true, but I think for me, knowing that we've done what's right for us makes me very proud.
Huge achievement.
I think for me, it's a little bit different. One of the reasons why the Spain thing has worked well is I've got a law firm in Spain who engaged me to market their services back to the UK. And during COVID, my primary and only contacts that I had there fell out with the business owner. So I was left with a significant opportunity, but I didn't know anybody. So the first time that COVID restrictions were relaxed, I got on a plane, a British Airways plane, of which there were 15 of us on the flight, to go to meet the business owner, who I'd never met before, to try to rescue a relationship that had no signs of thinking it was going to be rescuable. And 3 years on from that meeting, I'm now the de facto marketing manager for the business, on the website, doing the plans, spending the money, implementation, reporting, the full shooting match, really. So in terms of the most rewarding and proudest thing within the business that I've done, it's that. But as Tracey said as well, just the achievement in itself does give you does give you a warm glow, and I think we need to be reminded of that and remind each other of that probably more frequently than we do, if I'm honest.
We're all in the same camp, I think, in that space. It's easy to see the negatives sometimes and not celebrate the positives, isn't it? So, and a massive, well, congratulations on that front, Nick, with jumping on the plane and rescuing that relationship. All about the relationship build and treating people as you know they want to be treated. So on that note, obviously we're a networking group. We're only as part of that, and you are one of our hosts. Doesn't need to be within Only, but tell us about a networking win, something that really stands out for you.
I'll go again just because something's just come into my mind, and again, it's sort of, do not prejudge any networking opportunity. So there was a meeting in Farnham that I wasn't going to go to. Wasn't going to go. I'm not going. I'm in the car and I'm going.
We've all done that.
And so you go there and it's as rubbish as you thought. There's hardly anybody there. You get talking to one person. That one person ends up becoming a client. Actually, is no longer a client as it happens, but is now a friend. And we sit down over a beer, talk about that event. And he said to me, I wasn't going to go. I didn't want to go. And then I found myself in the car and I was going. And so try not to be prejudicial. You know, the smallest event can yield the best opportunities in the same way as I've been involved in large scale networking events that have been pointless. So
yes.
Try and be open-minded. And as I said to James, actually, a wasted meeting is never wasted time if you're meeting a good person.
It's very true. I think it doesn't matter how good a networker you are, how long you've been doing it, we all fall into that camp sometimes of we're tired or we can't be bothered in that moment, or it's not at the forefront of our mind. And you're absolutely right, it is definitely quality over quantity. I'm very much of that mindset, and sometimes it's a serendipity, isn't it? Tracey, I'll give you is there anything you'd like to add?
No, I think for me, the lesson I took out of it is that networking is a long game. It's not something that you do for 3 months, 6 months and expect the world from it. And my best referral has come from networking, a networking meeting that I attended for a number of years, and a referral that I got, a client that I got in 2020, and it's just one of my favorite clients. They're just, I love what they do. They're wonderful people to work with. I enjoy the work. I find it energizing. And that came from networking.
Yeah. And obviously somebody that knew you well because they knew to connect you with the right person. So,
but because we developed that relationship through the networking.
Yeah, which takes time. Yeah, perfect example. So just a fun question to end on, nothing too intrusive. Early bird or night owl?
Night owl.
It's always those little questions at the end that are putting you out. Early birds, 100%.
Oh, how do you manage that?
Well, I think that's why, coming back to that question about Spain, actually, why that really works for me, because actually, I really enjoy it. And I come back to the UK, I think, why can't I get up early? I just can't.
Yeah.
It seems your brain starts to whir. And that's what works for me.
Working late though, Tracey, after a siesta and a couple of sangrias is never a good thing.
No, I do switch it around in Spain, and that works. Yeah, very focused.
Good stuff. Well, it's always a pleasure to catch up with you both. And Nick, I should have said this at the beginning. Happy birthday. There's dedication as well. Networking on your birthday. Gold star for you. Where
would I rather be? I don't think we should be saying that you're taking me out for a drink later.
Well, we can say that. I'll see you in 2 hours in the pub. Thank you both. Always a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you, everybody, for listening.
Bye.
Take care.
So this has been the ONLE Networking Show. Please like, subscribe, share, and we'll see you again next month.